morning. You're watching Daybreak on this 19th day of March 2024. You may have had some conversations. They are here in studio, and I want to introduce them. That is Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who is the party leader for Third Way Alliance Kenya. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning, Sam.
Beatrice Alachi is the Member of Parliament for where we are, that is Dagoretti North. Good morning.
Good morning.
Senator Tabitha Mutinda, nominated Senator. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Chairman, Justice Legal Affairs Committee, Murugara. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Morning.
And it's good to have all of you here. And we want to spend some time talking about some decisions that have been made by the High Court in recent months. And eventually, Parliament has gone ahead to pass a law. And the first up is, we understand that today, I don't know whether it's in the morning or it's in the afternoon, the President should be signing the Affordable Housing Bill 2023, and it will become an act to be implemented to sort of give the legal framework that should see how revenues or the housing levy should be collected. Remember last time they were in court, and actually Chairman was there, the question was about the Finance Act of 2023, and it was opposed on grounds that the deduction was discriminatory and therefore unconstitutional. Chairman, how would you rate in terms of responding to the questions that were raised in court and now what we have, knowing that there are still challenges on how to define the collection of the housing levy from non-salaried Kenyans?
I would rate it about 90%. I think 90%, the law we've just enacted complies with the court decision, because the reason the law was annulled that time was due to the procedure that was used to enact the housing levy fund, which was an amendment to the Employment Act. And that is where the court said this structure, this formula is not right. We should have substantive law, possibly with regulations on how the fund is going to be collected and on how the fund is going to be applied. We have tried to do this. In fact, we've complied now because we have a substantive act. Regulations are just about to come out because they usually follow after the act is assented to, and then we will have a framework. The reason I give it about 90% is due to the fact that you cannot be 100% certain when it comes to lawmaking and when it comes to litigation.
Right.
There cannot be 100% certainty. Anybody in exercise of their rights can go to court and can make all manner of challenges, and we cannot say with any certainty that that person will not succeed. But I give it about 90%.
Okay. And that stubborn question about, because the point was that it was discriminatory. Now, yes, you have a legal framework, but still the formula of collecting the levy from non-salaried Kenyans is not clear.
At least in the provisions of the Act, there is a provision to collect money from non-salaried Kenyans. What we are now supposed to do is regulations, which will actually set out how this money is to be collected from the non-salaried Kenyans, because it's a little bit tricky to establish the income these people are making so that you are able to deduct from it a certain percentage. But with the time and with more work into the regulations, we are likely to get it right.
So when do you foresee, so the assenting may happen today, so when do you foresee the collection to begin?
It's supposed to be immediate if it can be done without regulations, but if regulations have to come in, we must give them about 3-4 months, because once they are gazetted, they have to be tabled in Parliament, there has to be public participation, and then the Committee on Delegated Legislation has to approve them. So I give it about 3-4 months to come in with a framework.
So it's not enforceable as it is now without regulations?
It may be a little bit difficult because you have to establish the income of a person who is not salaried. Then you have to make a deduction on it. It may be enforceable on assumptions if the KRA and the other collecting agencies are able to establish what the income is. But essentially, a formula has to be devised, and this has to be contained in the regulations to come by.
All right. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, let me get to you. Your view about what has happened and if it cures this challenge, because the President said that they have enacted a law in consultation with the judiciary.
First of all, I mean, let's just put the context right. I think we are also dealing with a government or a president who has many times said that he does not care what the judiciary decides. So he has no respect for the rule of law, he does not respect court orders, and he will try to circumvent them by whatever means. And we've seen many examples of that. The housing levy is one of them. And I can see Mheshimiwa is even struggling to actually tell you what is the formula of taxing Mama Mboga, the wheelbarrow guy that President promised to bring into government. Because if you are unsalaried, how then do you determine the income of a person? That formula is not there. So the law that was passed actually is, for me, it's a law that's not enforceable at all, especially in the context of Kenya where we are dealing with an unemployment of upwards of 60% or whatever percentage it is. So then how do you tax those? And let me also say this blatantly. I think this is the presidency of William Ruto is what now Kenyans can agree was a long con. It was promising Kenyans heaven and earth that we will do this for you, Mama Mboga, we will do this for you, Mtu wa Wheelbarrow, Mtu wa Mjengo. But now, look now, the law that Mheshimiwa here have passed in Parliament is actually punishing that person that they aimed to uplift. Okay?
How does it punish?
Because if you are saying today that you want that Mama Mboga, the wheelbarrow guy, to contribute to a housing levy, okay, let's talk about Kenya. A typical Kenyan would probably try to invest either to build a house at home in the rural areas, or is servicing a mortgage, or has taken a certain loan. Now you are telling him or her that you now want you also to build another flat apartment for somebody else. We don't even know the formula on how the redistribution of those houses will happen. So that's one context that I think Mheshimiwa here did not take into account when they were passing this law. And of course, we also know that President William Ruto has manipulated Parliament. He controls it, including members even of the opposition, who, when it comes to debating and voting for a critical law, they actually walk out. So they don't actually represent their people. They don't take into account what the people who sent them to that bunge actually want. And I think for me that's the tragedy of our representation today. So you have a government, a president on the one hand who says, I don't care what the courts of law decide. I don't respect the other arm of government called the judiciary. But because I've taken control of Parliament, I'm going to force whatever my policies are or my decisions are, even though they were not actually promises during the campaign period. And that's a fact. But
the housing was a promise, Mheshimiwa.
Well, but did he say exactly how he's gonna do it? In fact, if I was to say to allow this government to probably use some of their debt, the borrowing, maybe they should just borrow this money from wherever and build this house instead of burdening the ordinary Kenyan, including your camera people here, including you, Gituku. Yeah. I'm sure you are paying a mortgage or maybe paying rent, but now you are being told, let's build houses. And we have not been told the formula of how these houses will be redistributed or who. Today, if you ask me, I have a commitment, to where I live. And so how then do you want me, if I contribute to this house, and this is one of the biggest, the stickiest questions that has never been answered. What is really the form? Where is this money by they going to?
So, Dr. You raised an important question about whether this was in the promise. I'm looking at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and it's on housing and settlement. For instance, the urban housing, they said that increase the supply of new housing to 250,000 per annum and percentage of affordable housing supply from 2% to 50%. We will achieve this by structuring affordable long-term housing finance schemes, including a national housing fund and cooperative social housing scheme, so that will guarantee offtake of houses from developers, and also to grow number of mortgages from 30,000 to 1 million by enabling low-cost mortgages of 10,000 shillings and below possible.
But you see, it still doesn't answer the question that you also raised, the discriminatory aspect of this housing levy.
Yeah.
So what happens to somebody in my village in Kapedo or Mandera, to Dunyang, or even the villages in part of this country? So why are we only looking at people in the urban areas? Why not all Kenyans? Because I'm assuming the policy as proposed by Kenya Kwanza was about all Kenyans, wherever they are.
Yeah, so
that is not explained.
No, there was a promise. Rural housing and settlement. And I want you to help me look whether we are seeing this formula in the current law. Kenya Kwanza commits to establish a settlement fund similar to the one that was used to acquire land from settler farmers after independence. It was supposed to be budget neutral, to be financed by pension funds. Currently 1.5 trillion shillings plus another investment funds, including diaspora. They're saying there was 1.5 trillion shillings available. I don't know if we have any law that would allow to use pension funds to sponsor rural settlements.
I don't know.
Borrowing.
Maybe.
Borrowing.
It's borrowing.
Is it happening?
What is going to happen is as soon as the fund comes in and there is a provision for borrowing in it, because it has a board, it has a management scheme, which has the power to borrow and repay. That's number one. Number two, I think Wakili here has not read the Act itself. It has the basic structure on how the houses are going to be distributed through applications and what have you. It's the basic structure. Regulations are usually more detailed. That is why we are saying soon we will have regulations coming in so that the formula comes out clearer than it is now. And thirdly, away from the manifesto you've just read, let's look at the Constitution. It is a right of every Kenyan to get a decent, affordable house. And we are using the word affordable because these houses are cheap. They are not the standard market rate houses. They are houses which every reasonable Kenyan out there with some income of some sort may be able to afford over a long period of time. That's why we are calling it affordable.
Okay.
Affordable that they have also the basic amenities. There are better places to live in than where we live today. Why do we start with urban? Because the problem with housing is felt most in urban centers. It is not in the rural homes. It is in the urban centers where we have seen slums spring up, and we need to address this. So that is why we build the urban centers. But we also go to the rural, and the law we have promulgated also has a provision for rural housing. So it is not far-fetched to think about it.
All right, so I'll get back to you, Chairman. But Senator Mutinda, tell me your thoughts, because Senate was considering the bill and actually passed it last week. Are there any issues that stood out for you that you think would stand in the way of looking at the judgment of the court versus what you've passed and what you think needs to be done to smoothen that out?
Thank you, Gituku, and I want to confirm to you that today, this morning, the President will be ascending to the bill that Senate had an opportunity to pass. We had issues the other time that our House was not part of the bill, but we had an opportunity last week to look at the different amendments that had been proposed, and that was well done. And as Mheshimiwa says, Article 43 of the Constitution is clear in terms of decent housing for Kenyans. And we are coming from a point of where both coalitions of the government, both Azimio and both Kenya Kwanza, had a common manifesto, which was affordable housing for all its people. The key question is the process of ensuring that now we are able to give Kenyans that affordable housing, and the strategy of putting in place the houses for Kenyans. Remember, we are coming from a point of indecent housing, especially Nairobi, where we have over 5 million people living, and we've been highly affected by that. And it's a subject, it's a matter that as Nairobi leadership we've really welcomed, so that we move away from having the same promise year in, year out with different leaderships that have come in place. As Mheshimiwa has talked about the different housing structures in terms of a social house, which is for someone whose salaried below 30. We have an affordable house unit. We also have a middle class. And further to that, we also have a rural affordable house unit. That is those people within the rural areas, where the question has been brought about in terms of if I'm at home, I'm in Siolo, I'm in Kitui, and I have my home, then why do I need? But remember, the population revolution is not constant. We are growing each and every day. Is there space enough? Okay, remember we did not also want to focus on the agricultural land. We are looking at within those rural areas the urban, setup whereby we are within the social amenities of the schools, the churches, and all that for the people within that particular area. Remember, as Senate, we support devolution, and it is in these units that our people who are working with those counties, then they are able to improve themselves. We do not want a scenario whereby people are moving from their counties back to the city, which is Nairobi City, or back to Mombasa City, and trying to continue earning livings. It is a good platform whereby people will be able to continue with their decent livelihoods.
All right.
Politicians have used the slums most of the times to keep on promising people better living standards. It's a high time that Kenya Kwanza is actualizing it, because with that proper environment for our people, for our children, social amenities for them, then it gives them a decent environment for growth. We are reducing the issues of drugs that we've seen around, because now the environment is more decent, there's more access for insecurities and emergencies to be addressed.
Yeah. What would be your proposal? Because like he says, there's still that gap. How do you reach the non-salaried Kenyans?
Now, let me put it like this. In our payroll, because I have a payroll, my colleagues do have, you do have, we have the deductions that take place. There's the pay, there's NSSF, there's NHIF. And I want to use that example, Gituku, especially in NHIF. Does it mean, because I'm being deducted NHIF by my employers paying for me my NHIF, does it mean I have to get sick? It doesn't mean so. But it is part of the deduction. Does it mean then, since this deduction is in place, then it's not of value? There's the value in terms of the employee, you and me, we have been deducted. Then there's the bigger question of the person who's not salaried. Remember, still using the example of NHIF, we've had a strategy, a structure, a framework whereby we pay 500 per month. I actually pay for my parents, so I pay 6,000 per year annual for NHIF. She is not salaried. My parent is not salaried, but there's a platform that helps her be able to get that payment.
How do you make this
that's why
possible?
Yes, good question.
For housing.
That's why, as Mheshimiwa said, there's going to be a timeline, probably like 90 days, now to be able to bring that in place, that particular gap that has been placed, because it's just a 5 to 10% that has not just been covered as far as the unsalaried people are concerned. But a structure will be put in place because the bill allows for a management system.
Because we have 15 million in the informal employment.
Yes.
That's a sizable number. They actually have an income. It's only that it's not captured
Yes,
properly.
that's what I'm saying. The issue that is left is a 5% issue as far as the payment,
the issue
not
itself.
the people, not the number of people, but just the small issue that is left.
So what I'm asking is
how we are going to ensure that they are going to pay and what they are going to
So what
pay.
I'm asking is, what would be your proposal? Because, for instance, these 15 million people, these are people, probably they have houses, or they are paying rent, or they're paying mortgage, and now they're required to remit a housing levy to the government. How do you make that possible?
That's what I'm saying. I'm using the example of NHIF by saying that it can be an open opportunity. Because remember, this is going to be an asset whereby in future you'll use the platform to be able to acquire the asset if need be, or if you wish to. And your shares will be, of course, more impactful. It's a better platform. It gives you a much more bigger muscle with your family members when each and every person is committed.
Even if I already have a house?
Yes, even if you have a house, it's a plus. It's an investment. It's a plus. And I've told you, the generation, we are still increasing the population. It is not constant. So it is value, it's an asset, and it's valuable.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to defend government.
We are not actually defending government. It is not defending government. Let me say this, Gituku. I had my friend say that we are being manipulated. Parliament is being manipulated. I don't think there's an end under 18 in Parliament. We are all over 18 with conscious minds, abiding to the Constitution and sticking to that. So
we should trust Parliament in the decisions it has made. We
should trust the leaders because, one, they make their own conscious decisions for the betterment. And look at how we did the impeachment last week in Senate. It was not about government position. It was about integrity. It was about reducing the issues of corruption. And as Senate, we upheld that. We were not manipulated.
Okay, you know, Senator, you remind me of something the President said not long ago. I think it was towards the end of the month of February, and he was speaking to the people, but also to Kimani Ichung'wah, and saying that munataka pitishe ikifika Tuesday bila kuuliza maswali. Mheshimiwa Elachi, talk to me about what you think on what has transpired, but also how to cure some of those gaps. Because if anyone goes to court and beats this law based on it doesn't address the question of discrimination, what then?
Well, first of all, now I think one of the things I've always said is that we started by, you remember, we started all of us questioning what are we going to do? And now we've reached where in the morning they are signing the bill. So why don't we now start giving solutions to Kenyans and explaining to them the bitter part and how they move on? Because me, I've always said, you'll fight a fight, and you move to the next level. So we are moving to the next level, Sam, where we are telling Kenyans, now the bill is there. It's going to be signed. The revenue, and it is the courts that also give them the hand, you know, by telling them, okay, go and try and make this thing work. And so they came back to Parliament, and now we are here. But I want to say the issues we raised at that time as Azimio were very critical issues. When the bill went to Senate was able to do a lot of amendments in the bill. So it is important for us to come and do a very critical public participation awareness for Kenyans to know now how does the bill work within counties. And does it now resolve some of the issues, and what else do we still need our learned friends, seniors who are here, to help us now that the regulations must come in to guide.
Sorry, Senate made amendments?
Yes. A lot of amendments. And I will give you now where I felt, I know.
If that happens, it has to come to the National Assembly.
It came to the National Assembly. We agreed.
And we went again to, because those were the same issues we were raising as the minority side. And so Senate really worked on it. But the other things we kept on again questioning before, and I know we could not get an answer, but I'm hoping the regulations will bring, and which I would want everybody to help us, a few definitions, which Senate didn't give us. When you say a purchaser, who is that purchaser? When you say an owner,
who is the owner?
Who is the owner? It's very critical. And then clear mechanisms. When Senate passed, they said a county can now bring in legislation. The Constitution says when a national government has a legislation, it supersedes the SAT. Law. And you can imagine 47 different pieces coming up with different ways of doing it. It can bring confusion. That they have to look at. Then there was a notice of 90 days. Now, this notice of 90 days, you must bring in a because I can decide to be in today, and I just give you next morning the notice. What will you do? So you have to, in the regulations, we have to be very, very, how does that work? And then what percentage have I paid for me to walk out? All those things. And then there was something they brought in now where I know many people will wonder how to really work around that. When you say you allow people to take mortgage and go build a rural home. Now that one was the most interesting one. I got confused also. Because you see, when we are talking of affordable housing, which I want to agree because I realized yesterday I was watching Sky News, and in the UK, people are really crying. They need houses. The council houses are old. And I looked at our council houses and I was like, yes, our council houses are very old. But as much as we fight all these things, Kenyans also have let us down. You have your house. You've lived there for 20 years. You can't paint the house. You can't do renovation. You can't even change the toilet. You are not even paying the county. You pay 1,000. Do you know there are houses in, even in Woodley? When you tell the rent of Woodley, you will close your eyes and tell God, why can't I get a house there? But you have gone and built some shanties around it where you are collecting 400,000, but you can't pay the house of the county itself. So those are some of the things that irritate, that you feel a bit sad.
Okay.
So for me, Nairobi County must start reining into their own houses, make them look better. Tell the people who are living there, first of all, to pay you the monies they've owed you for 20 years.
Okay.
Then they must paint. But then the other thing is that don't forget now, we've already collected revenue. And we have roughly collected for the 6 months beyond 26-point-something billion, meaning in a year, if collected well, you can even go to, I know the budget policy statement was saying 72 billion, but they can go beyond. Now, what we should be asking ourselves is, you know, that is the largest, it will be the largest and highest collection of revenue for government from all the other sectors. So how do we start now crying and praying about corruption? And about seeing the houses.
Okay.
And about, at least for the last 6 months, we've been seeing people who have started building. Where are we? Can we start seeing the audits of where are we? Because we shall be talking like this. I am telling you, Sam.
Yeah.
You will come to scream here like NYS. You will scream. You will
all right.
be so disappointed why we ever brought in such a thing in this. I'm telling you.
I hear you. And I want us to take a break. But before we do so, Honorable Murugara, yesterday I had a difficult morning trying to find answers about how much money is expected to be collected with the current situation, but also now incorporating the non-salaried Kenyans. But also, who will be building these houses and how much will they cost? Because the plan is to do 250,000 houses per annum.
The plan is to do as many as we are able to do with the money available. It is a free market. I think there will be contracts, the normal way of government procuring through the PP.
Public-private partnership.
Exactly, PPPs, and through the Act itself, the Public Procurement Act, so that the law is actually followed and we don't have shortcuts or what have you. So
what is the value of the housing levy?
Now, that I may not be able to tell offhand, but it's substantial. As you 72 million per annum or 78.
You mean billion?
Billion.
Yeah. And what is its role?
The role of the money?
Yeah.
Is actually to build the houses.
But PPP are going to cost more than that.
No. What will happen, it may not be more. What will happen is, this is gradual. When you get into a PPP, you build the houses, the value is determined, and your payment will be drawn from this money, from the levy. So that is how it's going to work.
Yes.
PPP, you come in and you say, I'm going to do 5,000 houses. The cost is X amount of money. And it's reasonable, it's calculated well by the ministry. Then after you finish doing it and you hand over, you now lay your claim. And your settlement is going to be from the levy, the money which is going to be held by the authority or the board that is going to be in charge. Most of it is actually PPP. So it is not contracts that will be tendering and then you're told after a certain while you get paid certain sums of money. This is to ensure that you do not leave the houses stored. It is you completely building.
You see, if, and I don't know how much it is going to cost per unit, if assuming a unit will cost 1 million shillings to put up, and the plan is to do 250,000 units per year, that is 250 billion shillings. You're collecting an estimate of 72 billion shillings, you say. So how do you offset that difference?
In my view, it's going to be you have to do what you are able to do. That's number one. Number two, maybe a unit won't be complete in 1 year. It may take slightly more. So your PPP is not for 1 year. It's maybe for 3 years.
And I mean,
if it is for that, you have more money.
I'm not worried about the completion. I'm just talking about the financing, because the promise, Kenya Kwanza manifesto that I'm looking at is 250,000 units every year.
Yes.
So how do you keep that promise?
But remember, just to add, you remember this collection is within there is monthly collection. And also, there are going to be grants as per the bill. There's going to be that, and there's going to be the PPP.
How much? How much will the grants be?
No. Grants are open. The law allows for grants to be part of the funds. It allows that, and there's also going to be the PPP factor. Remember, the construction is within a year, so every month money is coming. Then there's the PP portion that the contractor has been able to put in place, and also loans or grants that will be in place, but mostly the grants.
I have a question, Sam.
Sorry, let's take a break. We'll come back.
Okay.
We'll come back with this.
I have a question which I'd like.
You're watching Daybreak. Stay tuned.